welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to be diving into courage.
Okay.
And you've given me a whole stack of readings here,
Yeah.
from like historical figures to philosophical ideas.
Right.
It seems like courage isn't just about, running into a burning building or something.
Right.
It's a little bit more
Yeah, it's more nuanced.
nuanced than that.
Yeah.
So what does it really mean to be courageous?
Hmm.
And how can we maybe apply these insights to our own lives?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
That's what we're going to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sources paint a picture of courage as being multifaceted. It's not just physical bravery.
Right.
It's about overcoming fear in all areas of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's less about those kind of like Hollywood, dramatic, heroic moments and more about kind of like everyday struggles.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
A great example of that is Florence Nightingale.
Okay.
I mean, she completely revolutionized the field of nursing. Right. She faced huge societal pressure.
Yeah.
And opposition even from her own family.
I remember reading it took her 16 years
Yeah.
to actually kind of make that leap.
Right. 16 years.
16 years of like wrestling with societal norms.
Yeah. Battling those internal doubts.
Yeah. And then finally taking action.
That's a really powerful reminder that courage
Yeah.
often involves this long internal battle against fear and self-doubt.
Right.
Even the most courageous people feel these things.
Right.
So if your own journey is taking time,
Yeah.
don't get discouraged.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's reassuring to hear because I think it's easy to think like, oh, it's just like,
Like one moment.
like one moment of, incredible bravery.
You're suddenly brave.
Yeah, you're suddenly brave, but it sounds like it's more about
Yeah, it's a process.
this perseverance and like
Absolutely.
even small steps.
Yeah.
Taken consistently over time.
Small steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lead to incredible acts of courage.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit
All right.
and look at how courage has played out on the historical stage.
Okay. Yeah.
So, the sources are filled with figures like Winston Churchill
Of course.
during World War II,
Right.
Ulysses S. Grant.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to see how these figures in these like really high-stakes situations
Incredibly high stakes.
used logic and reason
Right.
to conquer fear.
To kind of manage that fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like a run-in with some wolves or something?
He did.
Yeah, early in his military career.
Early on, yeah, he was with a more seasoned companion.
Okay.
And they were traveling, and
Okay.
they heard wolves howling.
Oh, no.
And Grant thought that a whole pack of wolves was going to descend upon them, but as it turned out, they were just two.
Really?
And they ran away.
So he was basically afraid of
He was terrified.
nothing.
Yeah.
Or like a misperception?
A misperception of the threat.
Right.
Yeah. And so his companion really helped him realize that often our perceived threats
Right.
are far greater than the actual danger. And this experience really became kind of a touchstone for Grant
Okay.
throughout his career.
Interesting.
It reminded him to not let fear distort his judgment.
That's a great lesson for all of us.
I think so.
I think it's so easy to let our imaginations run wild
Absolutely.
and like amplify our fears and anxieties.
Right.
When maybe if we just kind of took a step back,
Take a breath
take a breath and assess the situation logically.
and think it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might help us kind of like dismantle those fears.
Right.
Almost like, an early form of like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, you could say that
And-
these historical examples really show the power of logic and reason
Yeah.
in overcoming fear.
Okay.
But what about situations where logic isn't enough?
Right.
This is where agency comes in.
Okay.
This belief in our own ability to act. One of the sources talked about Peter Thiel
Okay. Yeah.
and how he responded to being outed by Gawker.
Yeah.
And what I thought was so interesting about that was that
Yeah.
even though he had all these resources,
Power.
influence power,
Money.
he initially felt powerless.
Right.
He kept saying, there's nothing you can do about it.
Wow.
Like really expressing this sense of resignation and defeat.
It's a good reminder that I guess anybody,
Yeah.
regardless of their status or power, can
can feel this way.
Yeah, feel powerless.
Yeah, and that's when it's so important to challenge
Right.
those beliefs.
Yeah.
His story shows that even when we feel trapped, we always have choices.
Right.
It wasn't until someone directly challenged his belief that he was powerless that he actually started to take action.
So sometimes we need like,
A little push.
yeah, like someone to be like, hey, you're not just a bystander here.
To remind us of our agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the power to like shape your reality.
You're not helpless.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so I think the teal example raises a really important question for us. What are the areas in our own WN lives where we've internalized this sense of powerlessness?
Yeah.
And how can we reclaim that agency?
Yeah.
Because true courage requires believing that we have the ability to make a difference, even when circumstances seem really daunting.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
And it can show up in like all these different areas too, you know, in our personal lives, in the face of like larger systems.
Yeah.
Even within our own social circles, like we can feel powerless.
Right. And so it's, I guess, about recognizing where we feel powerless.
Identifying those places.
Right. And then maybe that's the first step towards like
absolutely
reclaiming that agency.
Once we can see it, then we can start to dismantle it.
Almost like Grant and the
two wolves instead of the pack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This makes me think about Viktor Frankl, whose experiences in concentration camps are detailed in one of the sources.
Right.
He talks about the importance of finding meaning.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of unimaginable suffering.
Frankl's work is so powerful.
Yeah.
He basically argues that surviving hardship is meaningless, without purpose.
Right.
He even challenges future generations by asking,
yeah,
why did we survive if this has no meaning?
Wow.
Which is really interesting given kind of the cynicism and nihilism that was prevalent at the time.
It's almost like he's giving like a call to action.
It is.
It's like, you know, don't let our suffering be in vain.
Right.
Like, find something to believe in.
Yeah, find your purpose.
Yeah, find your purpose.
Find something to fight for.
Something worth fighting for.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Frankl's point is that true courage often requires believing in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about finding that thing.
That gives our actions meaning.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Purpose even when we're facing adversity.
Yeah.
I was also struck by the stories of people who displayed courage.
Okay.
By resisting unjust systems.
Yeah.
So like the Roman senator defying an emperor.
Right.
The lone man refusing the Nazi salute.
Powerful examples.
Those are powerful examples of like...
of individual resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows the danger, I guess, of conforming to these unjust systems.
Yeah. And also the ripple effect
right.
that even small acts of resistance can have.
Yeah. That picture of August Landmesser.
Yeah.
The lone man refusing the Nazi salute.
So powerful.
It just gives me chills.
It does.
To think about that, you know?
It's iconic.
Yeah. His defiance just captured in that photograph.
Yeah.
It shows the impact one person's courage can have.
Absolutely.
It's like a reminder that we always have a choice.
Yeah.
Even when it feels like we don't.
Even when it feels like we don't.
Yeah. So speaking of choice, like how do we cultivate courage?
Right. You know, in our own lives.
Yeah. How do we actually do that?
Yeah.
The sources actually offer some practical advice.
Okay.
And one thing that came up again and again was this idea of taking small actions to build the habit of courage.
So it's not always about those grand gestures.
No, it's about those small moments of everyday life.
Okay.
And the consistency of choosing courage in those moments.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the Roman soldiers building fortifications.
Right.
Even though their situations seemed hopeless.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have just given up.
Yeah, right. Going in the towel.
But instead, they chose action. And it started with one soldier, you know, picking up a shovel and starting to dig, and then another joined in, and another, and pretty soon, their collective action just became the symbol of defiance.
I love that.
Yeah.
Even in a situation where it seems hopeless.
Yeah.
Taking action, even if it's small, can kind of
shift your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Shift your mindset.
Yeah.
Create a sense of momentum.
Absolutely. Like a positive feedback loop. You know, action fuels courage.
Right.
Courage fuels more action.
This makes me think about General Mattis.
Yeah.
That idea of the offensive mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Like not waiting for things to happen to you.
Yes.
But actively shaping events.
Seizing the initiative.
Yeah. That's a powerful concept.
It is.
But there's also a cautionary side to courage.
Right.
Like, I'm thinking about the Charge of the Light Brigade.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the classic example of...
blind courage.
Yeah, blind courage leading to,
disastrous consequences.
Disastrous consequences.
Yeah.
So true courage also involves, like...
prudence. Considering consequences, choosing your battles, knowing when not to fight.
Right.
As a French general observing the Charge of the Light Brigade said,
okay,
it is magnificent, but it is madness.
It's a good reminder that courage without wisdom can be just as dangerous as cowardice.
Absolutely.
So it's about finding that balance. Right, between like bold action and careful consideration.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that leads us to another interesting aspect of courage.
Yeah.
Heroism.
Okay.
A lot of the sources talk about heroism as being this form of courage that goes beyond personal gain.
Right.
So think about the Spartans at Thermopylae sacrificing themselves to hold back the Persian army.
To hold back the entire Persian army.
The entire Persian army, or James Stockdale, and his selflessness as a POW in Vietnam.
These are definitely stories of like,
putting it all on the line.
Yeah, putting it all on the line, risking oneself for the greater good.
Right.
But it also makes me wonder about those situations where like restraint might be the most courageous act.
You're right. Heroism isn't always about those grand displays of physical courage.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about having the courage to choose peace over war, to prioritize diplomacy and compromise, even when everyone around you is clamoring for action.
Like Lincoln trying to prevent the Civil War.
Exactly.
Even though he ultimately led the Union to victory.
Yeah, he worked tirelessly to avoid conflict.
Yeah.
That's a certain kind of courage, choosing peace over war.
Right.
Especially when you're facing that kind of intense political pressure. Right. Requires immense courage and conviction.
It also makes me think about Stockdale again.
Okay.
So, he deliberately disfigured himself.
Right.
To avoid being used for propaganda purposes.
Incredible.
And he even attempted suicide.
I know.
To protect his fellow prisoners from further torture.
His actions just epitomize selfless courage. It's a level of courage that's really hard to even comprehend.
Right.
Putting the well-being of others above your own in the face of unimaginable suffering.
It really speaks to the power of like love and compassion to drive those truly heroic acts.
Absolutely.
But what about those kind of everyday acts of courage? The ones that don't necessarily make headlines.
Right.
But still require us to step outside our comfort zones.
Those are just as important.
Yeah.
They may not involve life or death decisions, but they still require us to confront our fears and act according to our values.
Right, like speaking up against injustice when it's uncomfortable, or like standing up for somebody.
Standing up for what's right when someone's being bullied.
Right, these acts might seem small.
They might seem small, but they really lay the foundation for a more courageous life.
The sources also touched on this idea of like owning our actions and taking responsibility for our choices even when things go wrong.
Absolutely.
The Charge of the Light Brigade is a great example.
Yeah, a powerful example.
Of what can happen when leaders shirk accountability.
It's a stark reminder that true courage involves accepting the consequences of our actions. Right. Not shifting blame when things don't go as planned. Right. It's about having the integrity to say, this was my decision. Yeah. I own the outcome, good or bad.
And that sense of ownership, of accountability is essential for like building trust and respect.
Absolutely.
Both for ourselves and for those that we lead.
For those that we lead.
Right.
Speaking of accountability, Frank Serpico, the police officer who blew the whistle on corruption within the NYPD. Yeah. What a powerful story.
Yeah. He faced immense pressure and threats.
He did.
But refused to back down from what he knew was right.
From doing what he knew was right.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play.
We do.
In challenging injustice.
Yeah.
And holding those in power accountable.
Holding those in power accountable.
And in the end, his actions led to significant reforms.
Yeah.
Within the NYPD.
Major reforms.
So it shows that even one person's courage can have a profound impact.
Can change the system.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see how like courage can be contagious.
It can.
Like one person's brave act can inspire others to speak up and create a wave of change.
So those Roman soldiers, you know, one starts digging, then another joins in, and then another, and pretty soon they've got this whole fortification.
And it leads to their enemy backing down.
Exactly. Their collective action, born out of individual acts of courage, ultimately led to their enemy backing down.
That's a really powerful image.
It is.
Courage in action.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that, like, our actions can have a ripple effect.
They can.
Inspiring others to step up and do the right thing.
Absolutely.
This brings to mind the incredible courage displayed by those who resisted Nazi Germany. You know, individuals and groups who risked their lives to hide Jews, to sabotage the Nazi war effort,
to spread messages of resistance. Incredible.
Their actions often undertaken in secret. And at great personal risk.
At great personal risk.
You know, demonstrate the power of ordinary people.
They do.
To make extraordinary choices.
To make extraordinary choices. In the face of tyranny.
In the face of tyranny. It's a testament to the human spirit.
It is.
You know, to resist oppression.
Absolutely.
And hold on to hope. Even in the darkest of times.
Even in the darkest of times.
Speaking of hope. You know, the sources also highlight its importance. As a fuel for courage.
Right.
John Lewis, the civil rights leader, is a powerful example of this.
A powerful example.
You know, he endured countless beatings and imprisonments.
He did.
But never gave up on his belief.
Never gave up.
In the possibility of a more just and equitable society.
He had this unwavering faith in the power of love and nonviolence to overcome hatred and oppression.
His story is incredibly inspiring.
It is.
It reminds us that even when progress seems slow, and the forces of opposition seem insurmountable, we can choose to hold on to hope. To believe in the possibility of a better future.
Keep working toward that goal.
And to keep working towards that goal. Hope can feel so fragile sometimes.
It can.
Especially when we're surrounded by
negativity.
Negativity and cynicism.
But it's in those moments that hope becomes most crucial. It allows us to see beyond the present moment. To imagine a world transformed by our actions. To believe that even small acts of courage can contribute to creating that future.
It's what keeps us going when things get tough.
It does.
It fuels our commitment to creating a better world.
That audacious belief in the power of hope is perhaps one of the most courageous acts of all.
But looking at all these examples, from the grand to the everyday, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what happens when we fail? What about those times when our courage falters? We make the wrong choice. Fear gets the better of us. Do those moments kind of like negate all the times we've chosen courage?
That's a question we all grapple with, I think. And the sources actually offer some interesting perspectives on this. You know, one that comes to mind is Ryan Holiday. He wrote about his experience at American Apparel, where he witnessed a lot of unethical behavior, and even participated in some of it.
Like, it took him years to finally speak up, and kind of break away from that situation.
He was really wrestling with a lot of guilt and shame
over his inaction.
And it's a good reminder that courage isn't about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about acknowledging our shortcomings and continually striving to be better.
So it's more of a process.
It is a process, not a destination.
You're all going to, like, stumble and fall along the way, but it's
getting back up.
The getting back up. The learning from those experiences that
ultimately shapes us.
Shapes our character. Instead of viewing those moments of failure as like a negation of all our previous efforts, we can kind of reframe them.
We can.
As opportunities for learning and growth.
Absolutely. Those moments of confronting our own limitations can be really powerful catalysts for growth. They force us to reevaluate our values and recommit to living a more courageous life.
And it's about having the courage to, like, be honest with ourselves.
To be honest with ourselves.
Acknowledge where we've fallen short.
Absolutely.
And use those experiences to kind of...
And to learn from them.
Become stronger.
And grow.
And more resilient.
To keep getting up. And to keep trying.
It's almost like the willingness to act.
Yeah.
Despite the possibility of failure.
Despite the possibility of failure, absolutely.
That's so important because we live in a world that often glorifies
perfection. Yeah.
And judges those who make mistakes.
It's all about giving ourselves permission to be human.
Yeah.
We're all imperfect.
Yeah.
The point is to keep striving.
Right.
Keep learning.
Keep choosing courage.
And keep choosing courage.
Even when we're afraid.
Even when we're afraid.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible journey this has been.
It has been.
You know, we've explored the complexities of courage.
I have.
Through historical figures, personal anecdotes, philosophical ideas.
All different lenses.
And it's clear that courage is not just about these grand heroic acts.
It's about those small moments.
Yeah, it's about the choices.
The everyday choices.
We make every single day.
Yeah. I think the sources really highlighted that we all have that potential for courage within us. It's just waiting to be unleashed.
And it's about finding our why.
Yes.
Like, what is that thing?
What inspires you?
Yeah, that inspires us. That fuels our actions.
What fuels your action?
Whether it's, fighting for social justice.
Yeah.
Pursuing a creative passion.
Absolutely.
Or just like living a life of integrity and purpose.
Yes.
That sense of purpose can really...
It empowers us.
Yeah, empower us to face our fears.
To face our fears, yeah.
And overcome obstacles.
And when we know what we're fighting for, when we have that deep sense of purpose, courage becomes less about willpower and more about aligning ourselves with something larger than ourselves.
And that alignment can be an incredible source of strength and resilience.
And resilience, absolutely.
It allows us to tap into that wellspring of courage.
That inner strength.
Yeah, to face even the most daunting challenges.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your week, consider this.
Okay.
What act of courage, big or small, will you commit to?
How will you choose to live more bravely, more authentically, and in alignment with your values?
Yeah.
Remember all the stories that we've talked about? All the inspiring examples of those who have gone before you?
Yeah.
Draw strength from their experiences, and you too can find the courage to rise to any occasion.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into courage.
It's been my pleasure.